Laura Simpson runs a startup called Side Door. She's basically trying to help artists enter alternative venues and has already helped artists host shows right across Canada and starting into the United States. Laura co-founded the company with a gentleman by the name of Dan Mangan and started Side Door after years of experience with running shows in home venues. In fact, Dan started his career that way. So with that said, I'd love to invite Laura up to the stage so that she can give her talk.
I'm thinking about my doorbell, when you're gonna ring it, when you're gonna ring it. Yeah, I'm thinking about my doorbell, when you're gonna ring it.
I like the song. Okay, they didn't tell me what the song was going to be. It's very important to me, being in the music industry, what song you walk on stage to, right? Thanks for being here. It's nice to see all your faces. I hope you had a good, relaxing, long weekend. Here to do some work today. So my slide deck is entitled Growth Lessons from a Neophyte because our company is only 20 months old. So I'm going to actually reach back a little bit further because I'm almost 40 and I've done other things in my life that have given me lessons in growth. So what I'm going to do is give some more high-level approaches that we do at Side Door and other things that I've done. So we all know that this is one of the famous commentary on how to grow fast, move fast, and break things. Hopefully you're not doing anything with fragile objects. I have a version of that, which is mash all the buttons until you get a knockout, which is something I learned very early on playing Double Dragon at the local arcade when it still just took quarters and you had to save up for that. That's my first lesson in how to figure out the secret combination of how to get the knockout. The second thing that I started to learn, and this is more into when I was doing events. If you've ever done an event, and thank you for all the people running this event, you know that it's very time sensitive. And so when things go wrong, people freak out. And so they text you if you're the one in charge. And so if your phone looks like this, I've made a habit of waiting 20 minutes. Unless it's a medical emergency, which there are very few actual emergencies in the music industry, you can pretty much wait 20 minutes before putting out any fire. And what this does, it's really, really important. This is where it's a growth strategy. You're actually treating your customers and your teammates as grown-ups who can solve their own problems. And it's not that you're not going to let them hang there too long. You are going to reach in. But what that 20 minutes does is allow them to try to solve the problem themselves. And usually they do. I would say most of the time they do. And when they do, they build resilience. They got over the problem. They figured it out. They're maybe a little pissed at you, but they figured it out. And the second thing is that now they have that capacity and skill set to do it next time or help somebody else to do it that next time. And I tell everybody in my team to try this. Just give it some breathing room. This one is definitely something that I've had to work on, the don't take it personally approach. So here's a little story. We did enter into the US market recently, kind of by surprise, sooner than we thought. A band called Broken Social Scene called us up, who have been involved in the development of our company, which we are very fortunate to have. They were on tour in the US, and they had a day off just outside of Boise, Idaho. And they asked if we could put together a show in some random spot. Now, they're a giant band. Anybody know this band? You know, okay. So they're a huge band. They roll with a tour bus and then trailers. And we were like, okay, so we all got on the phone. The show that they wanted to do was the next day. It was about 6 p.m. We all got on the phone, started calling, found a place. It was a goat farm / skate park. And we put them there, and the tickets were on sale, sold out within a few hours. The show happened the next day. It was great. But the problem was that because we had never done a US show, we didn't know if the ticket sales were actually going to work. We were using Stripe, and we had to set up the host and the artist through our ticketing system that was all run automatically in Canada that had gone fine, but we didn't know if it was going to work in the US. Lo and behold, it wasn't working in the US for some people because of some restrictions that US banks have. So this is about midnight. I'm writing back at the bottom here. I'm giving him some options. This person who's calling us the ticket lord, getting really pissed at us and like blasting us on social media. I'm giving this guy some options. Again, taking a bit of the wait 20 minutes approach. Don't take it personally was a real essential thing here. The next day, he goes to the show, he writes this. Basically the best time of his life. I keep this photo pretty close at hand whenever I'm trying to work on something really hard because it tells me that, and Steffi was saying this, was it Steffi or Alistair who was saying about if they're yelling really loud? Yeah. They're yelling really loud at you, Steffi was saying, like, why are they still with you? So he really wants this to work, obviously, and then he got the result that he wanted. So this is something that I think is essential for growth. Growth is often described as up and to the right, very phallic system of growth. I like to think about what are you bearing to the world that you must go through pain to experience and get to the other side. Childbirth is an excellent example of that. This is my daughter, my second child. She was born in 3 hours from water breaking to delivery. I've never experienced pain like that in my life. But what happened is I surrendered to it. And that to me was the essential learning point in any growth, in any birth, in anything that you're trying to develop. There will be pain. If you can't figure out how to surrender to that pain, first and foremost, acknowledge that it's there, accept that it's going to happen, and then move on and get through it to the action that you need. Acknowledgement, acceptance, action, surrender to the pain. Oh. So once you get through that pain, I think it's really important, and I find this really difficult. And I know I've talked to other people. I've done a workshop before on imposter syndrome. This is a thing. Being present for the gains is such a good learning lesson in growth because when you get to the place that you're trying to go to, if you don't actually figure out how to be present in that moment, you can't hear people telling you why it worked. You can't hear people saying, this reached me in this way. You can't hear people saying, thank you. You can't let the gratitude come in and celebrate that win. And physiologically, if you are actually blocking those wins from sinking into you, you have no way for your body to seek that kind of response in the future. So train your body to understand when you're in those moments. Sink into this. This is an event I ran for 2 years called Make Do Camp. Little event, passion project, lost some money. But this was a moment at the end of the camp when people were coming up to me and saying, this has changed my life. And I'm like, nobody home, gotta go. It was not sinking in. Can't let this happen. But if you're in that position, the best thing you can do is actually just draw it in. Make your body remember what that feels like, and then you will seek it out over and over again. So I'm going to speak over this video here. This is just a little sign of how we started small. So this video is just like a little capture of sort of what we did for 7 years in my house. We just ran shows. So this is sort of a more advanced version. We have a sound guy at this show. But my kids are drawing chalk, and we made some merch. And this is, years in development of just doing one thing over and over on repeat until we got it just perfect. So what we really wanted to do with Side Door is understand how to perfect it at a small scale so that we could really grow it. And in that, what's really important in that breakdown is not just how you do it right in the small part, but what can you actually control? Can I actually force people to do it the way that I do it? No. But there are certain repeatable processes that we put into the technology so that people can come in and from end to end have a show at their house or any space just by clicking a few buttons. It's really that simple. And nobody believed me this. When I was starting to do this as a house concert host, they were like, well, that's because you're in the music industry and you know. I'm like, no, I'm going to make this easy for you. I have figured out all the repeatable processes. You can make the magic. Just worry about the magic part, but don't worry about the administrative part. So start small and get it perfect at that level. And that's how you get big, because now we have almost 300 hosts across Canada and into the US, and our first show was in June of last year. And for me, that's amazing because it took me, 8 years of hosting now to figure out, how do I do this as a job for my life? Well, it's happening because we figured out those very small approaches to do it right at a small scale, to grow it big. And finally, I just want to leave you with this. Remember how far you've come. There's something in this journey where you're trying to grow 10x or whatever your goal is, that it's really difficult to remember to look behind you and see how far you've come. And it's not going to necessarily look like a nice path like this. It might have some pit stops and pitfalls and pivots along the way, but it's important that every part of that journey is important. And you are just one pinpoint along that timeline. And that journey is going to continue, whether you like it or not. But if you take a moment to look back, you'll begin to understand the sense of where you've gone. And this is something, I'll just leave you with this one thought. My husband always tells me this, is if you're not enjoying that journey along the way, if you're not actually enjoying the process, then you're on the wrong path. Thank you.